I decided to quit real estate, it was like the biggest relief. Life is so short and you might as well be doing what makes you really happy instead of like doing something just because you think everybody expects it of you. The glitz and glam of trying to prove yourself to everyone that either you're potentially going to work with or that's going to work for your company was just not interesting to me. Quitting a career that I had put so much time and energy to because my personal happiness in the present moment was the most important thing to me. So I quit real estate. I didn't really tell anybody, but I quit real estate. Those of you guys that have been following my personal journey know that I went to a doctor's appointment, and that doctor's appointment basically changed everything in my life. I had been diagnosed with a rare, incurable eye condition when I was early on in my life when I was a teenager, and it was kind of a joke that I was going to go blind because like people with that disease or condition oftentimes do go blind, and it had been a joke my whole life. And maybe that was a way of me coping with it, but it had been just kind of a joke. And I went to a doctor's appointment that pretty much made me realize that that wasn't really a joke and that it was like closer to my future than I had thought, that I was going to lose my vision. And that led me to have honestly a nervous breakdown and led me to deciding that I was going to quit real estate. So quitting real estate was something that I never planned on telling anybody. I didn't really want to make a big announcement like, hey, I'm quitting real estate, but it became kind of obvious that I was not going to be able to do real estate anymore because I was no longer able to drive. A lot of people with the eye disease that I have still drive, but then there's a lot of people that don't drive. And I decided I was no longer going to drive after a handful of experiences with me driving that just scared me enough to say, hey, I'm not driving anymore. So I never really told anybody I was quitting real estate because it was such a commitment to just say, hey, I am no longer doing this career that I have done my entire career. I got into real estate when I was in college. I got really much wrapped up into this idea of like having time freedom and flexibility and being able to make however much money I want to make depending on how hard I work. Um, and also, like, everybody thinks that you just make a lot of money in real estate. So, from a really young age, I got sold on the dream of being a real estate agent and then eventually was like owning a real estate company. And to be honest with you, I never ever liked real estate. I didn't like the industry. I didn't like the transactions. Like I found things in real estate that I liked and I really just heavily focused on those things. And when I had a huge crisis scare, a huge like life change, no longer being able to drive, I was like, you know what? I'm quitting this industry. I can't really do this industry anymore because I can't drive. And I also have always hated this industry. I love marketing. I love building stuff. Have always been a creative, but as far as like showing houses and like helping people through a very stressful transition of them finding a new home, like I really have always not liked real estate. But I just kind of told myself that I needed to continue doing real estate because I had sold everybody that I knew and all of my followers and like my social media platforms. Like everybody just knew me for doing real estate. And I was like too ashamed to like let go of that like identity that I had. But to be honest with you, when I decided to quit real estate, it was a huge relief. Like I'm telling you, a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I feel like I had worked so many years to try to make this job in real estate work and try to build a business after business after business. There had been like two or three businesses at this point. And when I decided to quit real estate, it was like the biggest relief. And I never really talk about like me deciding to quit real estate because um, again, I just didn't really want to make that commitment out loud to people like, hey, I'm no longer doing this anymore, because it's scary to come out and like say a definite thing like that. I've learned over the years not to really ever say I'm never doing this, or I won't ever do this, or this will never happen, because I've had a lot of things in my life that have happened that I never really thought would happen. So I quit real estate because not only did I have a huge health crisis that made me realize like life is so short and you might as well be doing what makes you really happy instead of like doing something just because you think everybody expects it of you. I quit real estate because of that. I quit real estate because I realized that what was important to me was not trying to pretend like I'm super successful financially in order to get people to trust me to conduct business with them. I realized that as far as clients go, but also to come off as like a super successful financially successful person in order for agents to want to work for me, like the glitz and glam of trying to prove yourself to everyone that either you're potentially going to work with or that's going to work for your company was just not interesting to me. It had never really been interesting to me. And as my life got more and more like real life, like it got a lot more like life or death type vibes, as far as like you may or may not have vision in a couple of years. I decided that like real estate, the whole industry didn't really align with me at all. I also really like have always had this desire to be free, which is why I got into real estate. Like I had a 9 to 5 job in college and I hated it because I've always just really wanted freedom and flexibility. And honestly, like making a commitment to buy a home or live in an apartment for 15 months, like sign a lease, like that also really didn't align with who I am, who I was. Like I have always secretly envied people that like just kind of live as digital nomads, or maybe live here for 6 months and then they move here. Like I've always envied people like that. And I just realized everything about the real estate industry was really not aligned with who I am and who I was. I've never really been interested in trying to make as much money as I possibly can. Like people that are in sales oftentimes are very money driven, and real estate essentially is sales. And I've never been money driven ever. Like I am just a creative and I love creating and building and all of that. So I quit real estate. I realized that my life is short, and the way that I am able to live my life is the way that I'm able to live my life now is limited, and that I really didn't have any time to waste to just be worried about like what other people would think, or worried about how much time I spent on this career. So I quit real estate. And when I quit real estate, I didn't announce it, but I had one person reach out to me and say like, hey, it's such a shame that you've spent so much time and energy into building your career, your name for yourself in this industry. It's such a shame for you just to give that all up. And I don't even remember if I wrote this person back, but in a nutshell, my response in my head, and probably to them also, was when you're diagnosed with something that's going to change the way that you live on an everyday basis, the way that you're able to have independence, when you're diagnosed with something like that, you don't really care about you don't care about the past. You just care about the present moment. You don't care how much time or energy or money you spent putting into a career. It's like a career is just a career. It's just a way that you make money. And I just remember that person saying that to me, and just letting me know that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing by quitting a career that I had put so much time and energy to, because my personal happiness in the present moment was the most important thing to me. Which this leads me to today. What am I doing? I spent like 9, 10 years pouring into a real estate career. And how do you start over from that? Like, where do you go? And it's pretty funny because I went off on a like year and a half, 2 year like hiatus from working, from life. I had no apartment, no home, no job. I just kind of was like living very minimally wherever I could. Sometimes I stayed with family. Sometimes I was like living out of the country. Like I just was kind of like living however, because I was really just trying to figure out like what it was that I was going to do while also enjoying life for the first time in my life. I started working when I was like 16, I think, and have been working ever since then. And so I, for the first time in my life, was just experiencing life and feeling what it felt to just exist. And when I realized that I wanted to get back to like having some sort of like a stable life, I was trying to put the pieces together about what it is that I was going to do. I literally tried everything. I can tell you everything that would require me to work remotely because I don't drive anymore. I tried like everything under the sun. I applied for jobs. I was going to start a podcast. I was going to write a book. I tried to do content creation. I literally tried everything under the sun. And what led me to where I'm at today is I had a conversation with one of my teachers that I had met in Thailand, and he said something to me that was really interesting that I had not thought about before. And, he had told me, he was like, you've done all this work on yourself. You have really like realized how much you were like living in like the wrong mindset or had the wrong habits. And he said to me, he was like, the point of growth and doing all of this personal development and our work is so that we can go back into our communities and shine your light in those communities. And he was like, you think that you want to stop doing real estate. You think that that's like the answer and that it's going to bring you happiness. He was like, but in all reality, he was like, why don't you just bring everything you've learned and who you are now, your light, back into an industry that cannot be so bright, that can have a lot of darkness, and also back to an industry that kind of broke you and broke your spirit, and you were kind of living in a way that wasn't really great for you. And my teacher said this to me, and I realized, I'm like, I've been trying to do anything and everything under the sun to get out of doing real estate because I just feel like it doesn't align with me. I can't do it anymore because I can't drive. I want to be doing something different. Like I just had all these stories about like why I needed to stop doing this career, like the only thing that I knew. And I just realized that I never really made the announcement that I quit real estate because I wasn't fully done with it yet. I eventually, a year ago, reopened my real estate brokerage. I realized that I had been doing apartment locating, which those of you guys who are not from Texas or a state that does apartment locating, it's a form of real estate. We help people find apartments, but it's basically 100% remote. I had realized that doing apartment locating was the like thing that I could do, like the exact thing that I needed to do that I had been searching for, trying to like, okay, well, I'm going to try to do this or do that. And nothing was working. Like doing what I had been doing already was exactly what I needed to be doing. And I decided that I was going to reopen my real estate company and try to shine that light back into the industry that I feel broke me. And that kind of like had me going down the wrong path in life and mindset, like all of it. So I quit real estate just to take a year off, 2 years off, and come back to doing real estate. Now I'm doing real estate and I'm doing it my way. I'm doing it in a way that works for me. I'm showing up as myself. I'm not trying to sell status or sell like sex. I mean, honestly, like a lot of real estate is about like how good looking somebody is if they're successful. Like I'm trying to show up in real estate as me, my most authentic self, and really just trying to be a resource for people who also want the freedom, the flexibility, like the really unlimited income depending on how hard you work. Like I'm trying to be that source for people, because that's why I got into real estate. I got into real estate and really allowed myself to kind of go down a path of thinking I needed to like be somebody that I wasn't in order to be successful, in order for people to trust me, and that's not me. So I quit real estate just to come back to doing real estate, but doing real estate a little bit different. So let me know in the comments, have you ever had a full circle moment like this? Whether it be with your career or a person in your life or a location. Like, have you ever said, hey, I am not ever doing this again, or I'm never coming back here? Have you ever had an experience like that just to come back as a totally different person and just do it totally different? Let me know your full circle moment in the comments, because I want to know. I can't be the only one.